jerk baits, man. I love jerk baits. It's cold out here. The water temp's going to be in the low 40s, and it's actually a very cold day. 37 degrees, wind's blowing. How deep do these jerk baits really run? There's a ton of jerk baits out there made by different companies, different bill sizes, different actions, and they say they run a certain depth. So what we're going to do is we're going to go out and I'm going to grab a handful of jerk baits. I'll tell you what they are, tell you a little bit about the jerk bait, and we're going to test them. I'm going to use the Garmin LiveScope, and I'll make some cash. We're going to jerk them down. We're going to see actually how deep these jerk baits run. Do they run the depth that they say on the package or not? There's a little bit of a variable on the line size and the length of the cast and how long you pause. So we'll get out in the water and we'll talk about all that. All right, I laid out some of the most popular jerk baits on the market to test today. I'll go through each one of them and just tell you what they are, and then we're going to get back out in the water and test these out. First of all, we've got the Lucky Craft SP78DD. Great bait. Caught a lot of fish. Look at the rash marks on there. Here's the Lucky Craft 100 SP. Right here, we've got the Lucky Strike RC sticks. Got the ever popular Vision 110 by Mega Bass. These are similar in profile, but the guts are completely different. It's a different jerk bait. Right here we've got the 6 cents per Volk. We have the Spro Mix Stick. We have the Strike King 300 Deep, KVD 300 Deep, and then we've got the Strike King. I believe this is the 200. It's the standard jerk bait. 2-hook jerk bait, 3-hook jerk bait. Notice the bill size difference. This is the deep, this is the shallower diving one. This is the Berkley Stunna. This is just a 112. Also throw in a 112 plus one. I don't have it out. Right here we have a Rapala. This is the Shadow Wrap Deep 11. It's a slow sinking bait. The Stunna is a slow sinking bait as well. Right here we've got the Rogue. This is the old school Rogue, the traditional suspending Rogue. Right here we've got the Elite 8. So bunch of different baits. Color's not important. It's all about how deep does this jerk bait really run. Let's go. We made it out on the water, and look at this pile of jerk baits, guys. I'm going to go through each one of these jerk baits. We're going to make a cast out there, a few casts, jerk them down, try to find them on the forward facing sonar and see exactly how deep these fish are running. This is going to be our tool that we're using today. This is just a Hawgz Custom Light topwater jerkbait rod, 6'8", and most importantly, 10-pound test fluorocarbon. That's what we're going to do. We're going to switch out all these jerk baits on the same setup, so there's no variance. It's controlled as I can possibly do it. I do have a snap on there, something I run with all my treble hook baits. That way I can switch things out really fastly and play around with different colors, different actions, different shapes, and things of that nature. So one thing I will tell you about fluorocarbon is it sinks. And as it sinks, the longer you leave it out there, the more it's going to pull your jerk bait down. So I'm going to really try to pay attention to how long I'm letting the bait sink or bait pause. Keep that as controlled as possible. So let's go through these jerk baits and see if they do what they're supposed to do. All right, so the first bait we're going to start with is the Spro Mix Stick. This is one of my favorite jerk baits. It dives a little bit deeper, but we're going to see exactly how deep this thing dives. And I'm going to try to make about a 60-foot cast. I'm going to reel down about 4 or 5 times, give it a couple jerks, and just let it sit. And try to make like 5 to 7 second pauses just to get an idea and try to keep it consistent. Okay, we're going to reel that thing down there. Give it a couple twitches. Let it sit. So there it is at 50. You can see it's down there. It's about 6 foot. You jerk it down there, it's going to dive down a little bit, and it's floating up slowly. So this thing's not actually suspending, it's floating up. This is right out of the package. Jerk it down a little bit more. There we go. It's really in that 6 foot zone. Kind of staying around that 6 foot zone. slowly rising out of the package. So I would put a little split ring on that front hook hanger, or upsize the treble hook to get it to balance out. But this bait's getting down there at 6 foot, so that's about what you would expect on the Spro mix stick. Next we're going to do the Lucky Strike RC stick. And this is kind of designed to look like the Megabass Vision 110, and from the outside it's very similar. Different guts, a little bit different action. Let's see how deep this thing dives. Alright, you can see it coming into play here on the graph. And it's getting down there about 6 to 7. It's doing a pretty decent job of suspending. So it's kind of flirting with that 8 foot mark. This is all about a 60 foot cast. So when it gets about 40 foot from the boat, it's kind of getting down there around 8, and it's fluorocarbon's pulling it down, but a little bit deeper than some. As we get a little closer to the boat, it's going to rise. So this thing gets down there decent. 8 foot's a good depth. All right, Lucky Strike RC sticks, 7 footer. Okay, next we have the Megabass Vision 110, $25 jerkbait. This thing's pretty nice. Cast this sucker out and see what we come up with. Okay, there it is. See it right there. And it's getting down there in that, it's staying down there around 6 foot as well. So it's doing what it's supposed to. The thing about the Megabass is it suspends pretty well right out of the box. So we're hovering right there in that 6. It may be down there about 7 now, as that fluorocarbon sinks a little bit. We've actually got a fish coming up to kind of look at it. He just went right past it. Nope. There he is. I caught a fish. Look at that, guys. That wasn't part of the plan, but it happened. Alright. So, here we go. That was awesome. Just doing a little jerkbait experiment, and one decided to come up there and snatch it. That was an open water fish. Wasn't really relating to anything. It's a fat sucker too. Nice. So this thing gets down there about that 5 and 6 foot zone. That was cool. That fish totally tracked that. We'll change up. We're gonna try another one. All right, so now we're gonna try the 6 Sense Provoke. Pretty cool little jerkbait. This thing gets down a little bit deeper, but let's see exactly how deep it does get. All right, here we are. You can see it showing up. And it's getting down there around 7 to 8. Yeah, it's down there kind of hanging out in that 8 foot zone. So a little bit deeper running jerkbait than some of them. Yeah, it's definitely down there a couple feet deeper. So 6 cents per boat. It's going about 2 foot deeper than the mixed stick and the Vision 110 in this test. All right, next we have the Lucky Craft SP100. A little bit wider body jerkbait. Probably show up a lot better on forward-facing sonar. Let's cast this sucker out, see what happens. So you can see it coming into view here around 50 feet. And it's getting down there about 8. It's hovering with that 8 foot zone, maybe 9 foot, which is a little bit deeper than what I thought it was going to go. It's kind of staying around 8 foot. Maybe 9. Yeah, now it's really starting to come up as I jerk it and gets closer to the boat. So this thing's getting down there around 8. Pointer 100, calling that 8 footer. All right, this next bait is one of my favorite baits of all time. I've caught a ton of fish, all different sizes on this bait, and it's the Lucky Craft SP DD. So the DD is a deep diver. It's a finesse bait. It's a lot smaller than the 78. Most of these baits that we're throwing are 110. It's got a little bit bigger bill, which allows it to get down there deeper. So let's see what this thing does. There we go. There we go. It's hanging out around 8, which is about what I thought. Actually getting down there around 9, maybe even 10. It's a little bit deeper. Yeah, I just wanted to be around 9. There's a fish down there below it. I don't know if he'll come up and chase it or not. So 10 foot, this thing's going to get down there about 9 to 10 foot and hang out in that 9 to 10 foot zone. And it's wanting to stay down there pretty good. A lot of these will rise as they get closer. This one's still kind of digging because of that deeper bill. So there you go. I'm calling that thing 9 to 10 foot. The Lucky Craft SP78DD. It's a 9 to 10 footer. All right, hope you guys are enjoying this. I mean, this is tedious. It is so hard to not fish and just do this video, so I hope you appreciate it. Subscribe if you have not and give me a thumbs up. It's greatly appreciated. But next we've got, this is a Strike King 2-hook model. I believe this is the 200 series. A little bit shallower jerkbait, I think, so we're going to see how much shallower it is. This is something I throw around shallow grass a lot. It's a good color, too. Kind of gold, the black back, the little chartreuse dot on there, chrome belly. Let's see what we got when we make this cast. This thing casts pretty good, really. It's a lighter jerkbait, but it does cast pretty good. Reel it down. I'm thinking this thing's not going to be getting down near as deep as some of the other ones. Okay, it's starting to come into view. There it is. We're at 50 foot, and it's a little bit shallower. It's about what I expected. It's kind of hovering in that 7 foot zone. Yeah, so 6 to 7 is kind of wanting to be in that 6 to 7, a little bit shallower running jerkbait than some of these other ones. It's not scared of 7 though, it's trying to get down there. Yeah, there it is. So I'm saying 6 to 7 on this one. And it starts coming up pretty fast as you get closer to the boat. I'm going to say 6 footer on this. You know, and it's going to vary with the size of line. If you're throwing an 8-pound test, it's going to get a little bit deeper. 12-pound test, a little shallower. Mono is going to keep it a little bit shallower for sure. Mono is going to float, so it's going to pull that bait up as fluorocarbons, encouraging the bait to go a little bit deeper. So these are going to vary based on your setup, but 10-pound fluorocarbon on about a 60-foot cast is the experiment that we're doing. So Strike King 200. Next we're going to do a little bit newer jerkbait that just came out in the market last year. This is the Berkley Stunna 112, and we'll do the 112 plus one in a second. Now this is a slow sinking bait, but we're still going to try to keep it moving to get an accurate representation of how deep it wants to dive. Okay, there it is. It's coming into the screen there. It's right down here. And it's covering down there about 8 to 9. Let's see if we can pick it up again. There we go. So it's a slow sink. So obviously the longer you let this thing pause, the deeper it's going to get. There it is. It's kind of staying in that 8-foot zone. So kind of like the Provoke. Wants to be down there around 8 pretty consistently. And like you said, you can let it sink and get a little bit deeper. If you work it slower, it's going to drop, get a little bit deeper. I'm calling this one about an 8-foot diver. All right, let's try this. This is the Rapala Shadow Wrap Deep 11. This is supposed to be a slow sinking bait as well. It's got a little bit bigger bill on it, so you would expect it to dive down there a little bit deeper. Let's make a few casts and see what we come up with. All right, there's a bait coming into view right here. You see it out there at 50. And it's getting down there around 10. So it's slow sink, but I'm trying to keep it moving. Yeah, it's definitely hovering around that 10-foot zone. It's a super slow sinking. It's almost suspending. So I'm calling this like 9 to 10 footer on my setup. It's about a 9-footer, guys. The Rapala Shadow Wrap Deep. All right, next we're going with a legend. This is the one that kind of started all the suspending jerkbait stuff. This is a Smithwick Rogue suspending model. Excellent cold water bait. Of all the jerkbaits that we've thrown today, this is probably the most tricky to throw. It's still manageable. A lot of guys throw this on a spinning rod because it is kind of squirrely. Let's see what it does. When you know I'd backlash with the Rogue, it's kind of what I expected. Sucker just isn't weighted as well as the other ones. They've got some newer ones that are weighted better. We're going to throw the Elite 8 here in a second. But the original one, a little bit tricky to throw. So I made a cast, and I'm just going to back away from it because I didn't get a real long cast. I'm going to back away so I can still give it plenty of time to get down to the depth that it wants to run at. And reel it down a little bit and pop it a couple times. Okay, there it is. It's showing up at 60. And it's kind of hanging out in that 8-foot zone as well. It's got a pretty good flash to it on the LiveScope. It's putting off a decent signal. Big signal, bright signal. And it seems to be, it's wanting to get down there around 9. So I'm calling this a 9-footer based on what I'm seeing right there. I mean, I did kind of back the boat away and let that fluorocarbon sink, so maybe we need to get around that 40-foot zone. Even at 40 foot, I'm moving it pretty fast. It's still wanting to stay down there around 9. A little bit deeper than what I thought it was going to run. Getting closer to the boat, it's coming up there to 8. Good signal though. Really good flash. You can pick this thing up good. It's probably the best return that I've seen of any of the jerkbaits so far. So the Smithwick Rogue, calling it a 9-footer, 10-pound fluorocarbon on about a 60-foot cast with the snap. Don't forget the snap. You know, that's going to come into play. It's going to keep that nose pulled down, and it's going to allow it to dive a little bit deeper. All right, next we have another Rogue. This is the Smithwick Elite 8. It's got a bigger bill, and it's an Elite 8, so they're saying this thing should get down there in that 8-foot zone. Let's see what it does. It still casts like crap compared to the other jerkbaits. Maybe a little bit better than the original Rogue, but still not something you can just sling out there. There we go. Yeah, it's a little better. Let's see what it does. Make about 4, 5, 6 reel cranks. Give it a couple jerks and let it sit. There it is. Man, these Rogues show up really good on the forward-facing sonar. So it's down there at 8-foot zone, which is what it's supposed to do. Big return. There it is. So at 40 foot, we're down there about 9. It's kind of hanging in that 9-foot zone. Flirting with 10, but consistently staying around 9. Now as that fluorocarbon sinks, just want to get a little deeper, get a little closer to the boat. And it's kind of the maximum depth right there. So we're looking at about 10 foot. All right, Smithwick Rogue Elite 8. It's getting down there 9 to 10 foot, which is as advertised. All right, this is going to be our final bait of the test. This is the Berkley Stunna 112 +1 slow sinking bait. Let's see what it does once we make this cast. Reel it down a little bit, give it a couple jerks and let it sit. Now this bait doesn't get down as deep as what I thought it was going to. It's a slow sink, so you can always let it sink and get down deeper. But it's wanting to hang out in that, kind of that 8-foot zone. Yeah. So you can see it down there. Kind of 8, maybe 9. Not as deep as the J300 deep, but it's kind of wanting to stay 8. It seems like it wants to be in that 8-foot zone. Even though it has a little bit bigger bill, it's just kind of happy around 8, maybe 9 foot. Pretty good return. So not a whole lot of difference between the 112 and the 112 +1. I think the main difference is that bill size. It's going to deflect off a cover a little more. And that's one of the advantages of throwing this versus the standard 112. All right, that's going to wrap it up, folks. A little bit tedious, but we did test all these jerk baits, and most of them are running like in that 7-foot zone, maybe 8-foot zone, which is about what you would expect if you need a jerk bait to fish shallower. Mono is key. Mono floats. It's going to keep that jerk bait up a little bit shallower, fishing around grass, fishing over the tops of shallow brush piles or laydowns and stuff. If you need to go deeper, of course, fluorocarbon is the way to go. You can drop down from 10 to 8 pound tests. These fish are sluggish right now. Even with 8 pound tests, you're going to catch 5 or 6 pound fish, no problem. They just don't fight really as hard. Just take your time, have your drag set properly, and keep a bend in your pole. Just keep that sucker loaded up and you'll be just fine. As far as castability, they all cast fairly well except for the Rogues. The Rogues are really squirrely. That little SP78 is a lighter bait. It's a little bit tougher to cast, but other than that, they all cast really well. Did catch one fish on the Mega Bass Fishing 110. Oddly enough, that's the most expensive jerk bait we threw, but I wasn't casting the fish. That fish just kind of came out of nowhere, but that was pretty cool. They're all really good jerk baits, and just have to play around with them. This is just kind of a rule of thumb to give you an idea. The Strike King 300, the J300D, probably the deepest diving one. The little Rapala deep diving, the Shadow Wrap deep diving, it got down there pretty good too. I was kind of surprised. So some of those get down there in that 11-foot zone. Some of them stay up in that 6-foot zone, and I would just recommend buying a few of each kind. So you've got a jerkbait that's going to cover most of your water depths. Thumbs up, subscribe. Until next time. I'm going fishing, man. I've been out here goofing around for like 2 hours throwing jerkbaits. I got a couple hours to fish, and we're gonna do it. It's cold out here though. My hands are numb. Until next time.